channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury or pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, true faith in you. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair in life, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light. And where there's sadness, ever joy. O Master, grant that I may never seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned, in giving of ourselves that we receive.
Hi, how are you?
Morning, Elvis. How are you? Morning, Spoo. Welcome to my garden.
Awesome.
I'd like to take you on a trip of my journey through art in my garden. So we're going to go to my earliest piece of artwork that I have. Not that I have done,
Yeah.
that I have.
Okay. Awesome.
So a lot of what I have has either been given away or it's been lost in the process. But this is a lot of people will call it a chocolate box artwork. So meaning it's kitsch, it's not so good, but it's one of my earliest, and so it's giving my age away. 1979, I did it when I was 14, and it's one of the few things that have remained. Obviously there's a lot of stuff in my mom's house, but ever since I can remember, from when I was a tiny little girl, all I ever wanted to do was art, and all I ever wanted to do was to be an art teacher.
Wow. And what was the thought process with the piece?
I took art lessons. So there was a lady who, it's an oil painting. You'll see a lot of the paintings are not oil paintings. I changed to acrylic quite soon. So it was learning to blend colors, and it wasn't a picture I specifically chose. It was the color blending that was what it was all about, and how to paint a seascape. So there's not any major sort of feeling behind it, if that makes any sense.
Oh,
Okay.
All right. And
Yeah.
I see you've got this one beautiful lady here.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Some people say it's scary. So,
Depends.
so you'll see that's done in 1985. So I was in second year varsity, and I went to study at Wits, did a BA Fine Art Education degree to be an art teacher.
Okay.
And then we obviously had to do a whole lot of disciplines. We had to do sculpture and photography and painting. I ended up majoring in painting,
Okay.
but that is a lino cut, which is a absolutely favorite medium. I just don't do it much because I have a scar from teaching a child in the early 90s where he gouged out a piece of my skin.
Oh, no.
So, but I enjoyed it very much. So those are actually self-portraits.
Oh.
I don't think my eyes are quite as big as I've got tiny eyes, but yeah. So that was one of the projects.
What type of, do you use the painting as in a paintbrush or?
No, so what you do is you have a piece of linoleum. It's the same like a soft kind of tile,
Okay.
like a soft, almost like leather, and then you carve out of it, and then you put ink on top and you print it, and that one's been layered. So you would carve out there what you wanted to be white. Would you carve that out, then print the first color, like red, I think would have been, or yellow would have been the first color. Then you carve out everything that was yellow, and then you print the red. Then you carve out all the red, print the blue over, and it becomes purple, and finally you end with black.
Okay. So
Yeah.
is that the same process that you did?
Yes, except this one is a color. This one is color, and it's a few prints. So you would do it 5 or 6 times, or however many. And then you can also do many of them. So that says 1 out of 1, but it could. I only did 1, but you could do 10. You know, you could do a lot of prints if you wanted to. But yeah, it's not something I do much. And then this one is just plain black and white. So you carve out and you print, and so whatever you've carved out will be white, and then whatever is still there will be black.
Oh, okay. And when you're doing paintings, doing portraits, what stories do you actually tell of from a person? Because like I know you can tell stories about the landscape and all that, but like with just a person, how do you tell a story?
Well, of late I've had a lot of commissions from people to paint, to draw their children or whatever, and I don't think I necessarily tell the story. I think I do the drawing, and then the drawing tells the story. I don't know. I think the eyes often tell a story as well. And I don't know, just depending on how you put it all together, it might come across as a sad picture or a happy picture. But later you'll see some commissions. We'll add in some commissions, yeah. Okay. So this is a family portrait, and also done in the 80s, because I left varsity in 88, so it's also university. But you'll notice on the table is an excessive amount of food.
Yes. That Christmas.
It is Christmas. So in the foreground is my mom in the polka dot dress and my late stepfather, and behind me, and then me here, and then behind me my brother. And it's an oil.
You love the cake.
Yeah, it's an oil painting, and my painting lecturer is a very famous artist in South Africa, Penny Siopis, and she spoke a lot about degradation and how we have excess in our lives and whatever. So I think I was very influenced by her in painting this, and I try to sort of show that we live an excessive life. We actually don't need, and if I think of my life then and I think of my life now, how simplicity has always been something that's been important to me. You don't need a lot in life to be happy. You actually need very little. But Christmas times would be a time of excess. Obviously, I have exaggerated it. And so, like, the colors are also excessive. A funny story was that the background was red, because red is such a opulent kind of color. You know, if you think of all the fast food joints, they're all red. Everything is red. But then I got married and I moved into a place, and the wall was painted that color, and somebody had given me a beautiful bowl that color, so it was very kitsch, but I painted the background that color just to match match the setting in my dining room at the time. So yeah.
It actually tells a story of love, of family, and every time, you know, wherever love is together, there's plenty.
It absolutely, yeah. So it does tell a story. Also, I mean, I don't know if you noticed that my mother hasn't got a shoe on there. Do you see that? So I think it was unintentional, but what my lecturer said to me is it shows, in a way, like a comfort and a casualness. Because when do you take your shoes off? You take your shoes off when you are at home, when you're comfortable, when you feel unconditional love from the people around you. Otherwise, you would keep your shoes on. Okay. I actually contemplated doing this video without my shoes on. But anyway, might still take them off. Yeah. So those are varsity, and I left varsity in 88 and then started teaching. And then for many years, I didn't do much art at all, because I put my life and soul into teaching. I taught matrics, and I mean, they just became everything. So every little bit of energy I had, I went into the early years of teaching. And then I left to get married, and I moved to Klerksdorp, and then didn't paint for a long, long time. And then when I was pregnant with my older daughter, Karen, I started painting again for an exhibition, which I had in 1997 when I was about 6 months pregnant with her. Okay. So you'll see a sculpture over there that's also part of the exhibition, but we'll come to it. Okay. There's very little left. It was a very successful my one and only ever exhibition that I've had myself. And so the top picture is a picture of where we lived. So I come from the Western Transvaal. I was born and bred in Orkney, and that's a picture of the sunsets. They have the most beautiful sunsets, and it was in an area close to where we lived. And then the bottom one, it's taking a bit of strain over the years, but is one of my favorite places in South Africa, and that's the Natal Midlands. So it's a place that we often visited. So that's what those two are.
Oh, because when I was looking at this one,
Yes.
I thought that was part of the trip that you took when you. But it still says a lot about what South Africa has, especially when you're looking at the vast land, and you're looking at the beauty, especially when you go to areas in KZN, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's so amazing. I
Yeah.
love the green. I love the sunset. I love the blue skies. I love seeing guava trees. In
I
the
think
middle of
that's for
nowhere.
me a theme throughout
Yes.
all the art that I've done. It is about God's creation,
Yes,
and
yes.
about appreciate. I always say to my art kids that art teaches you a different way to see things, or just to stop and actually enjoy. And that's, I think, why I enjoy putting flowers in the garden and
Yeah.
whatever. I like to be surrounded by God's beauty.
Yes, yes. And it's
Yeah.
nice. It's a nice way of expressing God's beauty.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I see this. This gives me French, Italian, Spanish.
Second one, you're right. The second one,
Italian.
Italian. You're good.
Okay.
Oh, obviously, if I had my way, I would travel a lot. But was very fortunate in the early 90s to go on an art trip with some art children with a group, and we went to Venice, which is one of the most beautiful places.
Beautiful, yes.
So yeah, it's from a postcard that I bought in Venice and copied it, and I did it in many different colors because I just loved it. And so I actually sold one that's in a completely different color that's at a friend's house, but I tried to simplify the colors so that I just used two, what we call contrasting colors. So like purple would be the opposite of yellow usually, or red would be the opposite of green. So I did reds and greens, and if you add white to red, you'll get pink, and if you add black to red, you'll get a burgundy kind of color. So it was more a study in opposite colors, but I just loved that picture.
Okay.
That's done in, it's not a pure watercolor, but that's sort of moved from the oil paint. That's still oil paint, and then I went on to doing more watercolor paints because of the toxicity, is that the right word? Toxicity of the chips. And I had little children, I was pregnant and I didn't want to have too much toxins around.
Okay.
But I think I'm ready to have
More
to do oil
toxins.
to do oil to do oil pastels again. Yeah.
And tell me something. In the markets with the painting, how are the sales?
For me, that's always been something that I've wanted to do. I've always wanted to have my art in a gallery and have them sell, but I just don't think that's been God's plan for me because I've just never managed to. So this exhibition, I had a good friend at the time. We're still friends, don't see much of each other, but him and his wife and my pottery teacher and I decided to have this exhibition, and my mother did the catering, and it was pretty much sold out. I also made prints of the stuff and sold out. So I was very lucky. And then, as a result of Facebook and Instagram and that, I've got quite a few commissions of late. So I haven't ever really sold out of a gallery, but I have managed of late. I've just been blessed that people will sort of see a picture that I post and then order one, So, but not much paintings. I managed to do a painting, which I'm hoping you'll see later. I'm hoping you'll slip it in there somehow.
Okay.
That I did last year during lockdown, and it was such a blessing to be able to paint for someone. Yeah.
Awesome. Now let's move over to the flowers.
All right.
The ones in the garden.
All right. So as you can see, I love flowers. I love the colors. So this picture, I don't know if you're familiar with the flower sellers in Cape Town. They put all those buckets in. So I've got a thing of buckets as well. I actually hid my buckets away, but there's some buckets there, and there's a bucket hidden away there. There's something about buckets that I love. I don't know what it is. It carries water, it holds stuff, I don't know. So I always wanted to do a picture. And then my brother lives in Cape Town, and he actually commissioned a painting like this. It's much bigger and it hangs in his house. And when I'd finished doing his, I thought, actually, I rather like that. So I did it myself. It's just bright, it's colorful, it's happy, and there's no hidden meaning behind it or anything. It was literally just, God's creation, and
And what
It's
type
just
of painting do you
that's acrylic. So I moved to acrylic. Yeah, I haven't dated these ones. I don't know why. Yeah, so a lot of them are now. I've moved to acrylic just because I had kids, and I also with the environment. I just didn't want to have to take that terps and chuck it down, the drain. I have a big issue. I'm also quite a passionate environmentalist, although I don't do much about it. But
Yeah.
I'm very into recycling and reusing and all that kind of thing, which is a problem with art because, you use up materials and I don't know, it's wasteful. I mean, you chuck away paint and, I use leftover polystyrene things, but eventually it all lands up in the landfill. So that's always been a thing for me, and that's why I changed. So everything from here that you see will be acrylic. That's what I've been spending the last, I'd say 10 years, 20 years using acrylics.
And how much are the canvases for this? Like,
that one's not canvas. I think this one is hardboard. Can't remember. Yeah, I think this is hardboard.
okay.
So that's not as easy to work on because the paint doesn't draw in. But I don't know, a piece of canvas like that'll cost 200-400 rand, depending on the quality. You also see, you'll see there, that one over there is thinner. Also depends on the thickness of the, and how it's made. So, I haven't bought canvases for a while. During lockdown I ordered, but I ordered the wrong sizes and it was delivered. So, anyway, I haven't done them yet, but we'll see.
and I'm guessing, I'm not so good with my plants, but I'm guessing this is the protea.
Well done. Well done, Elvis. Yes. So, I mean, I love roses. I love all flowers. I love proteas. But I did a workshop of how to paint proteas, and that's where that came from. So, but now looking at it, I think it might need some touching up.
So you do workshops as well?
So, yes, I haven't this year with lockdown, but I used to have a art studio at home in my house in Irene. And then once a month I would have people come over and just paint. And I've done various workshops. For me, it's quite important as well that people have a space to relax and create. And so it is in the pipelines. I'm just waiting until, sort of things settle a bit.
Maybe look into doing online workshops as well.
Yeah. I'm not so confident with online things, but yes, that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
No, it is definitely a possibility. Yeah. So those are the flowers there, and then also did a workshop. Another workshop. So people could either choose between doing the protea or they could choose between the echeveria, the rock rose.
Yes.
And again, it's just about pattern and it's about what you can see in nature, and then irises. I used to have a lot of irises in the house in Irene.
Yes.
So that was from a photograph, and also just the colours. I love the colours and the shapes, and
It's just about the colors. It's because looking at us being in a rainbow nation, when the colors come together, it just makes this beauty.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even if the colours are not a wide variety, even if it's just muted colours, there's so much within one colour, isn't there?
That's so true.
Yeah,
That is so true.
yeah.
And I see you have
Yeah, it's a mandala. So I went through a stage. Well, I still do a mandala workshop, but those paintings are at school. And then I've done quite a few other things, just crafty, fun things. So mosaicing was one of them, and that was a little workshop I did there. And then there's a mirror. I did one for each of my children, and I've done quite a bit of mosaicing, an old toy box which I eventually gave away, but that was just fun to do. And then I also dabbled a little bit in pottery. So here are some also pots, all were given to people, so I don't have much. That's one of my first ones, that one with a triangle. One of the first ones from years and years ago, with the same pottery teacher from the exhibition. And then I taught kids recently how to make these little heads. So that's one of the heads that I used as an example. And then I went to pottery lessons, and I've just created some funky stuff, but then also some functional things. These are not the greatest because I did them largely as gifts. But there's some, what do you call those things? For water, bird feeders.
Yes.
I've made bird feeders, and there's a little plate that's hanging on its side, this little leaf thing. fallen over. But yeah, and this is, I love to do sculptures, but also don't have any here. This is a book stand, so you would have books over there. But not my forte, something I've enjoyed. And
What goes through the process of pottery?
well, you first, it depends. There's lots of ways. I've never used a wheel. I'm too much of a control freak. So with a wheel, you have to let go and, let it go. And maybe one day. But with this, I've done mostly hand pots. So the first thing is to get your clay and then to get rid of the air. So they call that wedging, and you would chuck it a few times and you would sort of knead it out. And then build up your pot. Then it needs to dry. So this has been printed in. So, this has been made up of little bits and pieces. So like additive. This has been rolled with a roller. So, there's various methods of doing it. You can choose. And then once you have done it, it gets fired in a kiln. So we have a kiln at school, but this was fired at a pottery teacher's place. And then, so it's a long process because first you make it, then it dries, and it dries for a couple of weeks. And the kids always get very irritable that their stuff's not coming out that kiln. Yes. But it's got to dry because you can't have any air, because when there's air inside or when it's wet, the air will expand and then it'll explode. So you've got to wait until it's dried completely and there's no more wetness or no more water. Then it goes into the kiln and they fire it at 1200 degrees. It's fired at a very high temperature. Then it comes out and then you paint on the glaze if you want to. But like this, I didn't glaze. This is just normal paint onto it. But these have been glazed. So you paint on your glaze. You can even rub off some of it to get sort of different textures. And then it goes back in and then it's fired at an even higher temperature. I'm not actually even sure what it is, but a higher temperature. And it's just an exciting process because you're never quite sure what you're going to get. It's like a bit of a lucky packet, you don't really know. Yeah.
And I love how you keep interpreting and keep putting colors into every work that you do.
Yeah, I do love color, I must say. I do.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So this is not color. And then also going to like the drawing. I think we're almost back to the drawings. We did a workshop, a school workshop, and the woman did a workshop on charcoal. And I love trees. I love nature. So that, if you can see it, it's a bit abstract. Yes. But it's the bottom roots of an old oak tree. Okay. But that was also interesting. It's not my natural forte. But then, of course, I've spent the last 2 years drawing in greys and blacks and whites. So we sort of
has to interpret their own color into it.
Yeah, or not, or just leave it as just a plain black and white thing, or a grey thing.
Charlie Chaplin had everything was in black and white.
Exactly.
And
look at that.
We enjoyed his shows.
Exactly.
Yes.
Look at that. No, exactly. Yeah.
Just the feeling of what he was, the story that he was telling, just gave us joy. So I think even with a painting or a drawing as well, it doesn't really matter whether you have the colors in it.
Exactly.
But just the fact that, it tells a story.
Exactly.
It gives you that sense of joy.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
That's amazing. And I see you've done a few crosses.
Okay, so why I've left the crosses sort of for close to the end, I just came across these at a market, the cross-shaped canvases. Yes. Yeah, it's obviously been a central theme in my life for a long time. Christianity and God, because I don't know what else I would have done or how I would have got where I am without God's presence. So I sort of thought, well, how do I combine all of that? And the peace, the dove is meant to be peaceful, so I've painted onto that. And then obviously the flowers, which is a rose, and it was just a different shape, but obviously it is meaningful for me,
So when you get the canvas, do you get it shaped as a cross? Or?
Yes, so there was a guy at Irene Market selling these cross-shaped canvases. So I've sold a few of them. So these are the 2 that I kept for myself. But I just, I thought, well, that's a challenge to not have a rectangular one.
Yes.
Obviously, the mandalas you can do quite nicely on a circle, and I've done a few of them. But it was just a challenge, and I liked the way they turned out. So that's them. Yeah.
You still got your flowers.
And I've still got the flowers, yes. Yeah.
I can see a symbolism of peace.
peace.
Yes.
Yeah,
does.
which, yeah, I think we all strive to have peace in our lives. Eh?
Yes.
Yeah,
Each and
Yeah.
every day.
every day,
Ah.
and each day is a new day.
And
Yeah.
how long does it take to create something like
That mosaic,
Yes.
I can't even tell you, forever.
Mm.
That is a very arduous procedure. It takes forever. Because you cut them, to various shapes, you place them, you've got to get your design, you add things. It's also a very expensive process. So those were really two labours of love. My older daughter's got hers, but I think it might be with her. But that's I can't even give it, it's hours and hours. But I did that as a hobby. I used to teach part-time, and so I had a bit more time.
Yeah.
But now there's no real time for that. Although when I was setting everything up today, I thought, maybe it's time to mosaic something again.
Yeah.
Never too late.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now tell me about the process of your drawings, and I see you even have a calendar.
Okay, so what happened last year with lockdown? We all know that lockdown came, and I think it was a shock to everybody's system. So I was doing Alpha at the time. I don't know if you were at Alpha then as well.
Yes.
We're doing Alpha at the time, and Jean said, why don't we learn, now that lockdown has happened, because it was 21 days. Remember the initial things was 21 days.
Yes.
So why don't we learn the 21 names of God in the Bible? Did you know there are 21 names of God in the Bible?
No. As a theologian, no.
Well, there are 21 names. So, so you'll see my little book. I had bought this little tiny little A6. So I thought, you know what? I'm a visual person. I can't really learn by any other way other than drawing and writing and whatever. So, a lot of them are gone. So sort of here is day 5. Jehovah Nissi, the Lord is my banner.
Okay.
Adonai, Lord Master, day 4. So what I did is every day I took one. Well, she had given us a list.
Yes.
So every day I took one of them. The Lord is my shepherd. And so it goes on, and some are missing because some people bought them. This was, it was like the world had come to an end.
Yes.
Everything had closed. But this sort of was inspired by Michelangelo, where in the Sistine Chapel you have the hand of God touching Adam's hand and giving him life. And I thought, you know what, even though the world is closed for healing, God is still there,
Yes,
God is everywhere. The highways were completely empty.
Yes.
It was the most bizarre thing. You were seeing these bizarre things of, just desolation. And I just thought, but God is everywhere. I think this is the Jehovah Shammah. Sorry, excuse my... So that was how this whole process started. And I got to the end of the 21 days and I thought, and I was posting them on Facebook. So I thought, well, I can't now just stop. And people had responded so well to it. And I know my mother had said for years, that she'd paid for, I had a bursary for varsity, but she'd obviously supported me and paid for my varsity where I needed stuff and whatever, and I wasn't really using it. I was teaching, but I wasn't using my skill that God had given me, or my gift, to help anybody else. And then these became such a blessing. People would say, like, and then eventually I sort of, I'll just flip through, literally, these are 21 days, so some of them are gone, and then I would, here, for example, is one of Cyril, not a great one, but then, so it then became almost a commentary of what was going on in the world. So the day that he said, okay, so now we're going to go down to level 4, I did a drawing, and I just started doing drawings for various people. I don't know if you'll know Andy. Andy was the pianist in Midstream many years ago.
Oh, no, I wasn't there.
No, yeah. But things like that, So then I would sort of start doing on people's birthdays. There's Martin Luther King, and always then put a verse with it. And it just became such an amazing thing. There was for all the nurses. People were dying, left, right and centre kind of thing. And then obviously I couldn't find an A6 one because now we're in lockdown. And you'll see some of these are just all sort of come out. So that's sort of the size of them, and literally I drew every single day. And I mean, we were in lockdown we still are,
Yeah.
but then when we went to level 1, we all went back to school and there was just no time. So I just, but those are my 3 sketch pads from the, then that one I did for Mother's Day because my mother loves elephants kind of thing. So it was such a blessing to me. I mean, that God could actually work through my drawings. And often there would be, like I would do a drawing for someone. I remember doing a drawing for somebody and I dedicated it to this person and she sent it to a friend. And the friend's mother was dying of cancer and I didn't even know the friend, and it was such a comfort. And I thought, sure, God can actually use you, if and when and how he wants. And then obviously with the support of Jen Buerta and well, obviously everybody, but also Bonchi, managing, this lovely girl do this calendar for me and put it all together. Carla Ferri, I mean, such a talented graphic designer. And so then put all of those drawings, or not all of them, what we chose, into the calendar, which we sold. And I actually managed to pay for part of Gemma's varsity with that. So God really has blessed me immensely. And then just for myself, I decided, where are we? Let's put it on today, the last day of August. I did, for Women's Month, I did like a picture of a woman every day and looked at the woman in the Bible like Ruth and Tamar and whatever. So for me, it was such a learning process as well, because and God would talk to me. It was like weird. I always said God never talks to me. And then suddenly, like, I'd see the same verse 2 or 3 times and I'd think, oh, okay, well, you're obviously trying to say something.
Yes.
Trying to say, let me listen. So Women's Day every single week was, or every single day was something for some woman. And then I put all of those into my little book, which is called Surviving COVID-19 Through Scriptural Sketches. Put it all together. Just through Book Creator, but again, it only goes to, it's got a couple this year, but it goes to the 19th of September last year. That's sort of the last official drawing, because that was when things sort of went back to normal. I just didn't have time to draw every day. Okay. So it's been a huge blessing. And then, of course, at the beginning of this year, when Jim asked me to paint in church, that's been such a awesome blessing to do.
That was amazing.
I was so nervous and I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it and how am I going to pace myself, and it just worked.
Yes.
It was such
I love
a blessing.
The way that the message and the painting just connected, and the way you just, the moment you finished your painting, the message was finished. So it was like, timing
it was really, and again, I mean, that's the thing, like I was reading about it again today, in God's time, everything in God's time. And so it's been a big blessing. And I've had lots of commissions. So if I've posted a picture on Facebook, then I posted a picture for nurses, of a nurse who had let me see if it's in here, at the beginning of the year, and it's amazing. I mean, there's a group of this nurse who was looking after these twins. The mother had was sick and that she was in hospital and she couldn't look after both her kids. And this nurse came. I mean, she was obviously exhausted, put this baby on her back. And then this woman, who I don't know, from a bar of soap, drove all the way from Joburg, came and actually not bought the original. I gave her the original. I just thought how God works. Yes. It's amazing,
It
So it's been a big blessing.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So as a creative, what's your definition of a creator and the creator?
So many years ago, I went to see a doctor, and he said, and I've never forgotten this. I didn't like him as a doctor particularly, but I have never forgotten. He said, "You are created by a creator to create." Is that not beautiful?
It is beautiful.
And every day, if you're battling with depression or you're battling with something, every day you need to create something. You need to use whatever skill you have. So I'm not a good cook. I hate cooking and I'm not a good cook. But if you were a cook,
Yes.
that's a creation.
Yes,
So if you make a beautiful meal, you're creating something. What you guys are doing now, creating a video, is you're doing what God has gifted you to do, what God has made you. If you are a musician, but you don't even need to be a musician. You know, if you are creating, a warm space for somebody, or you are creating time for somebody, or you are taking time out of your day to be with somebody, and and I've always held on to that. So I don't know, that doesn't maybe answer your question, but for me, I think you don't always get it right every day, but if you're gonna do something every day, because when you wake up, the day is ahead of you.
Yes.
So what are you going to do? You might not physically create something, but what kind of space have you created? What kind of mood have you created? What kind of memory have you created?
Yes. So actually, that's what I wanted to hear, because when I asked the question, it was about the creator and the creator. So you just put it all and you summed it up in one. Yeah.
I just love that, and I've never forgotten it. And people will say, oh, but I'm not creative. Everybody's creative. Everybody's creative. And it just depends on where you find your expression and how you whether you make something for somebody. It could be a simple sandwich. Are you doing it? And I don't do this. I don't. But are you making that sandwich or that cup of coffee with love?
Yes.
Or not?
Because we're made in His image, so meaning we're carbon copies. So
Exactly.
We have the
So should
ability
we
to create.
Exactly, and should we not be doing the best that we can do? And so I must say that often I would wake up in the morning and I didn't feel like drawing, but I felt like I've made this commitment to God for these 21 days. I'm going to do it. And then it just became easier. God does give you the ability.
Wow.
He equips you. You might not know it at the time, but He equips you. So, I survived lockdown by God's grace, and here we are.
Wow.
Here we are.
And what message would you give to an aspiring artist?
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Nike. I'm not a Nike. I'm not a Nike spokesperson, but I think we worry so much, and something I'm struggling with hugely is approval from other people. Don't worry about what other people say. You always want somebody else to say, oh, good job, Tracy, well done. Oh, you're a good artist. Well, actually, you know what? Be who you are, because God made you who you are. He made you how you are. He made you what you are. And you just be the best you can be and do it. Even if you feel like you're not a creative person and you want to paint, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if somebody else thinks it's good or not or whatever. I mean, I think if my art professors, most of whom are dead, would walk around here, they'd probably say, ooh, But it doesn't matter, because it's what it's what you do, and to whose honor you do it, and for what reason you do it. It's not, as I say, I'm struggling to not worry about what people say, because I think we're all human. You want the pat on the back, or you want acknowledgement from another person, but actually you don't, because God already acknowledges you. He already has acknowledged you. He's already created you, for goodness sake, with whatever. So I would say to anybody out there, whatever you want to do, just do it.
That's amazing. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank
in your
you.
home
Thank
and
you.
showing us all this beauty.
Thank you. It's been
And-
my privilege and pleasure.
Yeah. And to everyone, welcome to Tracy's channel. And this is what you're going to have more of. And
Oh, I hope so.
yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
No, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Right.
Thank you.
Everyone, peace.